Hi, Leah.
Hey, Judy.
Welcome back to our Anatomy of Ancestral Alchemy podcast.
Yes, welcome back.
We just went through a little bit of a snafu, and how I like to work is I like to look around like what's happening, and that gives me data. And for this moment, we are now recording on change of plans. What happens when we have obstacles? And so the obstacle for today was I had left my computer at home. So now I'm using my phone, which I didn't plan to use. And so it's not fully charged. And then I couldn't get the audio setting exactly the way it should be. So it was like obstacle after obstacle.
Yeah.
Which interestingly is connected to collective trauma.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I just
I was about to
I was like,
say more.
we need to talk more about this because I need to get in my body because I feel bad that I left my computer at home. And so I noticed this initial spiraling, like, oh my God, I ruined it for our planned time to do the podcast interview. And now I just started berating myself for this. And now I'm turning it into an opportunity of teaching or kind of processing it at the same time. And so it'll be rich and valuable.
Yep.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah. That's great.
So, why is this generational trauma? Obstacles that make it very hard for certain people to get their needs met is how it's landing in my body. And particularly, I'm bringing in like class consciousness right now around how certain people, if they don't have access to resources that they should have access to, everything turns into an obstacle.
Yeah.
How does that land so far, Leah?
Oh, for sure. I think you're right.
And zooming out for a second, we have this, what is it, a mantra or this like background noise of just pick yourself up by your bootstraps or just change your mindset and all of this other stuff, which really denies the fact that there are actually intentional obstacles for certain groups of people that impact their ability to thrive in society.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I notice for me, what do I notice for me? I'm still out of my body right now. Can you talk a little bit about what's landing for you first?
Yeah, I think what's landing for me is this piece around the obstacles in the past. If we think about evolutionary history of humans, obstacles in the past were much more dangerous, right? They were the mountain lion that was stalking you in the woods. It was poisonous snakes. It was just trying to think of anything that was like super threatening that we were always up against. Weather is another great example. Yeah. And also, I think warfare at the time was a lot more unpredictable too. Right now, I think we hear more about that in live time than people would have back then. You may not know people were coming until you saw them on the mountainside or the hillside. I think from an evolutionary perspective, which then leads into ancestral and collective, obstacles were much more threatening. And so I think sometimes our mammalian brain gets turned on a little bit more when there's another obstacle that's like a threat to livelihood or survival. This is connected to our businesses. And even though like our intention isn't directly to make income, there's still that inherent energy to it, that quality to it. Yeah. So to me, it feels like some of it is instinctual. And then I think when we get into the more current dynamics of ancestral lineage, I do think people have had a lot more obstacles just inherently based on who they are in this world, right? Their lived experience in this world, the color of their skin, their gender, all of that. So yeah, how does that land as I name those things?
Yeah, and I'm noticing like part of me wants to get more specific in case it will be more resonant for the viewers.
Yep.
And so for instance, so I grew up working class. My family was an immigrant family, and we were paycheck to paycheck basically. And so that's my lived experience in my nervous system. even though when I'm financially secure, my body still feels I have to hustle and things like that. So here's how something happened in my life to just see how it lands in you. Okay. So last year, the big pipe in my house broke. Okay. So that was a $40,000 expense. It was a shared expense between the unit owners. Okay. So then that was an expense that I had to kind of budget for that I wasn't planning. And then my phone at that time maxed out on memory. And so that became another expense. And then my computer maxed out on memory. It was just like these expenses after expenses. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about these are things that if you have not had access to resources readily, if you didn't have limited resources in like food security, if you've never experienced what it feels like to go, okay, I don't have food today, I wonder if I'm going to get it tomorrow, you're not going to understand what obstacles feel like for people who have historically, and for some people intentionally, been refused access to resources.
Yeah. Yep. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Right.
Yeah. It's literally not your lived experience.
Right. And so for me, because I haven't had readily or access to readily, easy access to resources from a young age, when something comes in the way, I get highly triggered very quickly because I don't know what it feels like to be able to go, oh, but this will be covered, or someone else has my back. Like for me, I don't have someone to back me up.
Yeah.
If I don't figure it out, I'm screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are a lot of people in the globe who feel like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What comes up in you as I talk about it?
Yeah.
Like the specific experience.
Yeah, I was just sitting with that too. Yeah, I think for me, it was more around actually what happened here this morning. Like, I was the one forgetting something, right? On a road trip with my family, or going to school and forgetting to do an assignment, or only having it half complete, or things like that were really a lot of obstacles that were showing up for me when I was younger. And that was hard because I think I was seen as somebody that needed extra support. And like at one point I did have tutoring in school, and then when I was in college, I can laugh about it now, but I had to take statistics 3 times to pass it and needed a tutor there, and school was not easy for me. So when I think about a lot of obstacles for me, it was actually in the educational realm when I was younger, and in the emotional realm. Those were really the obstacles that I faced, I think, in my life. Yeah. Yeah. And that was coming from a family that was fairly educated. My dad had a PhD. My mom went to grad school but didn't finish. But even for a woman of her generation, that was a big deal to even have an undergrad degree. That was very different to come from such a highly educated family and feel like it was actually a big struggle for me. Yeah.
I have something coming up for me.
Yeah.
One, I would never have even survived statistics. That's what landed for me. I'm like, oh my God.
It was required for us as a psychology major in undergrad. We had to pass it. We had to pass it with a C or higher.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't do psychology undergrad.
Okay. Yep.
And then 2, I'm like, oh, that's why Leah was so kind when I forgot my computer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, that's why Leah's so kind whenever I am like feeling discombobulated or insecure, or oh, that's why Leah's so empathetic. Yeah. This is how it's landing for me.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I'm like, yeah, if it happens, let's work through it. I'm good.
But it's so interesting because I think historically, I am in relationships with people who are like, you didn't charge your phone? You didn't bring your computer? You didn't frustrated?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which then spins me off even further into the, oh my God, I'm such a fuck up for not doing the thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Like personalizing that it was all my fault.
Yeah, I'm glad it lands that way for you. Of, okay, this is why she is the way she is at certain moments of time. Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, there was a lot of just having to release, like, this isn't the end of the world, but it felt like it sometimes, for sure. And I think part of that was just practice of seeing I can still get somewhere, right? I can still achieve things I don't have to be the smartest person in my statistics class to still get the degree in my case, or things like that. So that I think was, yeah, it came from a very high functioning family. And that was hard.
Because you were perceived as not that.
Yeah, definitely having different abilities and qualities to them. Like even both my parents are really tall, and everyone is like, where did your height come from? So even when I would walk with them as a kid, they'd be way in front of me, which is interesting, right? It's like those subtle things that you don't think a lot about is like feeling intense, but as a kid, it felt like I could never catch up to them. Yeah.
And then how did you internalize it?
Like my body wasn't as able as theirs, quite literally. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there were a lot of different aspects of that. Yeah. And I think it took a lot of like me coming into my own to be like, no, I still have all these amazing gifts and skills. And just because I'm not as tall or
right
as executively functional, life can still be really amazing and I can still achieve things. Yeah.
Because you're bringing something completely different to enrich the thing. Right.
Yeah.
I'm landing back to the like how I was internalizing me forgetting all these things and just like experiencing as like obstacles, right?
Yep.
Is I remember in school, because when my dad died, I didn't have any support at home. So my dad died when I was 15. And so doing schoolwork, waking myself up, making my breakfast, packing my lunch, getting my homework done, like rinse and repeat every day. It was just me on my own.
Yeah.
And I remember going to school, and this was always the case. High school, undergrad, grad school, current moment. I'm like, everyone knows what to do. I don't understand what to do. It just feels like there's something defective in me.
Yeah.
Defective is a very resonant word. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why is it so hard for me? And so I'm just connecting it to, it's a difference that I have in experience versus other people, and how it can, if I perceive it as a defect in me, then it becomes another obstacle.
Yes.
That I put on myself, a limitation I put on myself.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus if now, like we're talking about, if like I perceive it as, oh, it's just a different lived experience, and it actually enriches the whole. It's much more expansive and it's not as constrictive in my body.
Totally. I love that. Yeah. And to piggyback off that, what comes up for me is the concept of people being mirrors for us. I think part of like me saying I needed to really come into myself, part of that was finding other mirrors in my life, right? Like the people that didn't reflect back to me that my body wasn't as abled, or right, they reflected like, I think about my amazing Zumba classes, and I really felt very skilled as a dancer and loved dancing. And my teacher was actually like a very skilled dancer in many different art forms. And so or dance forms. So she would actually like say the specific technical name for things. This is much more as an adult, which is why it was like, it's hard to find adult dance classes that are like specific dance modalities. But part of what I appreciated about her teaching was that she still incorporated a lot of that, even though it was like a recreational Zumba class. And it was something I felt like I really excelled at. And my parents, that's not something my parents would have done, but it's where my gifts lied. And I felt really confident in there. Yeah. And that was reflected back to me a lot in that class. So that felt meaningful. So finding people that can be mirrors for us in ways that are different in a positive way. And that takes some time.
It does take time.
Yeah.
Someone was telling me this image of, this is the unknowing and this is the knowing. So like I don't have a skill and then I have the skill. And it's really important to remind our children, because it was a parenting thing I was listening to, that there's this space between the not knowing and the knowing. And so to really keep modeling for my kids like this learning space between.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing about learning about who we really are. Because I think we live in a society that keeps telling us, like, you need to be tall and you need to be organized and you need to have everything planned out and have all like these expectations of what it looks like to be a capable person or whatever is not necessarily going to include everyone and all of their differences, which are very valuable. So even understanding like who I am versus what I'm supposed to be, like the discovery process takes a while and it's supposed to.
Yeah.
This is how we mature, basically.
That's right. Yeah, it's what Carl Jung would have referred to as individuation. Yeah. And when I was feeling into that spectrum, what I was feeling was curiosity. It's a theme that we keep coming back to here is like, how do we hold curiosity for like very open, non-judgmental curiosity for what's in between those two hands.
Right. Because then it gives space for everybody.
And the spectrum of possibility. Yeah. How's your body feel when you think about that? The spectrum of possibility.
Feels much more like open.
Yeah. And I just noticed myself taking a deep breath. Yeah.
It's like I can feel a place where I belong in that spectrum of possibility versus like when I'm not regulated and when I go unconscious, it's like I'm measuring myself against something, which is very limiting.
Yes.
Not possible.
Yeah. 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 And I see a lot of people sadly end up in this trap of it's possible because they force themselves to do it. And then they're like, this isn't in alignment for me. So there's another obstacle that comes up because they push themselves too hard
in a direction that's not for them.
Yeah. It's not theirs.
Beautiful. So I'm digesting it back to the alchemy piece, which is when obstacles come or resistance comes, or how do you view it less as a deficit internally and more as data of like, what is this obstacle showing? What's it mirroring right now as a way of opening to curiosity or growth?
Yeah.
Or a better understanding of you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's beautifully put. How's your system doing overall now since starting with coming in without the computer and landing here and alchemizing?
I'm like 80% in and 20% like, how are we on battery? Does anyone else do that?
Oh, yeah. Justical parts. Totally. The timekeepers and the,
It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
Yeah. And to just be kind.
Yep.
I'm just holding the sweetness of everyone. Like, I was like, I can't get into my thing. I don't have my password on my phone. I have it on my computer. And you're just like, that's okay. Yeah. So how do you approach yourself with that sweetness and openness of this happens? Because berating yourself is just going to make you go into your stress part of your brain and have even less resource.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for walking me through that.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing and being open and vulnerable as always. And may this serve the viewers and the listeners. Woo! The hilarious way to end.
Thank you, universe, for really proving the point.
That's great.
And we will see you soon.